Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Meta. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have been tracking this idea of a 1-2 setup where right now we are looking for a third wave to unfold to the upside. Now we don't expect this wave 3 to form in a direct fashion. We would be looking for an initial wave 1 to the upside part of this larger wave 3. And as of now, this is exactly what we are tracking. I'm not ruling out the possibility of a more direct impulse to form in this pattern, but I do find it significantly less likely. Now, in this movement, we are looking in this area to the upside. I am tracking an impulse at the moment where I consider we could be looking even at a series of 1-2 setups to have formed in this area. In this structure, we would be looking to follow up with a wave 3 that technically could be complete in the white interpretation, and we could be looking for the larger wave 4 to form within this movement to the downside. We could see a more substantial extension than what we have already achieved in this wave 4, I would not rule that out, but at the same time, based on proportions, it would be sufficient, it would have done enough. We have a 3-wave move to the downside, and we could already be looking for the next wave to the upside in a wave 5. Although, if you have seen our previous coverages on Meta, you would know we are looking for something potentially even more bullish. Because in this structure, while I could consider this to be a 5th wave complete, as we have in the white interpretation, we could be looking instead for an extension in such a scenario where I would still track the same wave 1, 2, 3 and 4th, but instead of considering a wave 5 top to be in place here, I would track this only as a wave 1 to the upside. Now, don't get me wrong, this has the possibility to have a full count in the white pattern. We don't need the additional extension higher because this is not an initial 5-wave move to the upside we are tracking. But I believe if this is a true wave 3, we would very likely see an extension within this area where I would instead look for a wave 3, a wave 4 and a 5th wave before looking for a more substantial top in the wave 5 to be in place. It's not a necessity, but I do find it rather likely if it is going to form an impulse. If this structure, this larger pattern is going to form an impulse. Now, since the previous video, we have broken the levels of support we have been watching, and we want to do some updates there, but we have very well pushed into the area of resistance we were tracking, and we could be looking at an extension in our wave 2 correction even. And before we get into today's updates, I want to quickly mention the channel newsletter that we have recently launched. The link is in the description, you can sign up, it's completely free, and additionally, if you do want, however, to support the channel directly, you can do so by joining the channel membership. It is available in the description as well, or you can click the join button where you get access to some cool perks, including member-only videos, and yeah, we will add additional content there already starting this week. Now, on this chart, we have been looking for a wave 3 to form within this area. In this wave 3, we need to form an impulse, otherwise it will not be a valid count, it will not be a valid interpretation, as we are tracking a 5-wave pattern in this initial wave 1 up. In this case, we would need to consider at this point this to be a double 1-2-1-2 setup, since we have failed to hold the relevant levels of support for what we were tracking in a 1-2, 3rd, 4th and the 5th. In this expectation, we didn't necessarily achieve as much as we wanted within the wave 3, but we did fulfill the minimum expectations. The ideal target within the wave 3 has been achieved, the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, and it has been achieved perfectly in fact, but at the same time we have pushed into our resistance area in orange. So now that we have pushed into the last level of resistance, we have failed to hold the level of support within this structure, I do want to bring out on the chart the potential structure I could be looking that could take us to even lower prices in this ABC pattern. It doesn't need to unfold as an ABC pattern, but that is what we will need to track to have the area of resistance that would remove the possibility of a wave C unfolding in this area anyway, because we could be looking at a WXY structure instead, a WXY structure in this area, where we would form an ABC pattern instead of a 1, 2, 3, 4th and 5th. But I would not be able to reliably tell you that we wouldn't extend into a wave C unless we break relevant levels of resistance that would allow us to track the said wave C. Now, be aware, this wave B has a full count. We are looking at a 3-wave pattern that has formed within this area. We have pushed perfectly into the last level of resistance before forming this extension to much lower prices. We have failed to hold our larger area of support, and we were even tracking, in a smaller time frame, a potential impulse that would have extended, and there was an attempt to hold here the 50% retracement. Yeah, we did form a tiny relief rally within this area, but nothing too significant, and we can even completely remove this scenario. Yeah, it just didn't really work out. And what I want to highlight now is that we have failed to hold the levels of support for the wave 4, but if you remember, we would have known earlier than breaking the 50% retracement at the $668 level because we were tracking an impulse within this area, meaning that we would have not been able to allow the wave 4 hit the wave 1 top. Yeah, it would have not been allowed to get into the wave 1 territory at the $677. Now, with this latest development, I really cannot track this as an impulse to form in a direct 5-wave pattern within this area, and while we can still look for continuation to higher prices, it has become a very fragile structure, and I would need to track this as a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th within this movement instead. In such a case, we would need an updated area of support for continuation to higher prices, and this is between the $685.5 all the way down to the $628.5. So far, we have pushed very nicely into the 61.8% retracement, where we have had our more substantial reaction to the upside that is currently ongoing, and even previously, at the 50% retracement, we had here the slowdown of this very strong descent to the downside. Now, additionally to this, I would like to warn you that not only do we have a potential 3-wave pattern in an ABC structure to the upside, but we could also be looking at an initial 5-wave move to the downside within this area. I couldn't necessarily rule out the possibility of having this all be part of the wave 3 and then to look for a wave 4 and a 5th wave to the downside, but I probably prefer this idea of a 5-wave pattern being complete one way or the other. So while this doesn't mean that we couldn't be looking for continuation to higher prices here internally, I really cannot rule out the possibility of a bearish 1-2 setup where we would need to focus instead on continuation to lower prices. I probably prefer this interpretation based on the structure alone. Now, in this case, we would be watching the levels of resistance in orange between the $682 all the way up to the $722. We have so far pushed perfectly into the first level of resistance at the 38.2% retracement in this area where we have had our initial rejection, yeah? Now, I wouldn't consider this to mean that we have completed our extension to higher prices either, even though we did fulfill the minimum expectations, but I would expect to only form a 3-wave pattern in this area and to look for at least another low in a 5-wave pattern. This could still hold the internal area of support we would have for a 1-2 setup in this area. Yeah, we still have room down to the $628 level for continuation in a follow-up wave 3. But it could just as well be looking for the wave C to unfold to the downside. So it might be best to actually track this within a different color, probably blue, because again, we could be looking for a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th in the orange interpretation, but at the same time, I could be tracking an A, B, C pattern within the yellow structure in this internal wave 2. In the end, long term, I would consider this yellow structure would still have another chance. We have still room within this larger 1-2 setup before we would need to look for something more bearish. I wouldn't consider this to have failed creating this yellow structure if we don't manage to push directly higher from the smaller time frame structures, but already below the $628.5 is a strong indication to us that we would very likely extend in a reset of this large wave 2, meaning we would expect to very likely go below even the $580 level. Now, an ideal target for this wave C in orange is something we can provide as well, we could be looking for, and that would be the 100% extension of the wave A around the $544-43 level. Although it's still an ideal target and we don't need to get there, but at the same time we don't need to stop there. Now, In this smaller time frame structure, I won't go too much into it. I want you to focus on the levels of support. A break below the $628 level is a strong indication for lower prices. A break above the 78.6% retracement in blue at the $722 level would be a strong indication that we are looking for a more direct push in a follow-up wave 3 to the upside. And if you remember, I have even provided you in the previous videos the ideal target for this supposed large wave 3. Now that would be at the 138.2% extension of the wave 1 around the $1,200 level. But remember, this wave 3 must form within an impulse, which is why we must absolutely hold the 78.6% retracement for a reliable pattern to extend within this area. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.